I don't know exactly when things started to go downhill between Qley and me. People always ask that in retrospect. When did things change? When did the warmth fade? But the truth is, it never happens all at once. It's like winter creeping in during late fall. One day you step outside without a coat and realize the cold has already settled in. Quiet, gradual, but permanent. My name's Daniel. I'm 36, and I work as a mechanical engineer at a plant out in Brampton. It's not a glamorous job, but it's stable. Unionized. Good benefits. Pays decently. 90 grand a year, which keeps our mortgage paid, our fridge full, and our internet fast enough for Qley to stream whatever she wants. We live in Mississauga, about 20 minutes from my work on a good day. If traffic on the 401 doesn't get crazy, I make it around 7:30 in the morning, leave by 5:30. That's my Monday to Friday life. Nothing fancy, just discipline. Every day, I wake up at 5:45. I'm up before the sun, even in the summer. Winter's worse. Pitch black when I leave, still dark when I pull into the lot at work. My routine's almost mechanical. Shower, shave, pack my lunch, usually something I prep myself the night before, and out the door with a travel mug of black coffee. Qley's still asleep every morning when I leave. Sometimes I look at her curled up under the duvet, snoring softly, and wonder what happened to the woman who used to get up and kiss me goodbye. When we first got married, she worked at a dental clinic as a receptionist. She used to wake up with me, make breakfast, pack our lunches, even write little sticky notes with "Have a good day, babe" on them. That was 5 years ago. Now, Qley hasn't worked in over 2 years. She says she's taking time to focus on herself and exploring options. What that translates to is watching true crime documentaries, endlessly scrolling TikTok, and ordering Uber Eats like it's a food group. I used to suggest she take some online courses or volunteer, maybe get a part-time gig at the community center. But every time I brought it up, I get a sarcastic response like, "Why don't you worry about your own burnout and let me worry about mine?" Burnout. That word gets thrown around a lot. But I don't have time to be burned out. I come home every day to a house that looks like no one lives in it responsibly. Dishes piled up in the sink, empty coffee cups on the table, chip crumbs on the couch, and Qley either on a FaceTime call with one of her friends or lying under a blanket watching a show. Dinner? Forget it. I can't remember the last time she cooked. I get home starving and ask, "Did you make anything?" And she'd give me this look like I just asked her to build a house with her bare hands. One night I said, "Hey, I'm really tired. Could we just have some pasta or something simple?" She answered, "You're the one who loves cooking. It relaxes you, right? So cook." There's a difference between sharing responsibilities and being taken for granted. That was the moment I felt it. She didn't see me as a partner anymore. I was just the man who paid the bills, kept the lights on, and made dinner too. And I know what you might be thinking. Why didn't I sit her down and talk to her? I did. God knows I tried. We even went to a couples therapist in Oakville for a few sessions. The therapist, Laura, was great. Professional, patient, asked the right questions. But Qley treated it like a joke. She'd make jokes during the session or twist every criticism into an attack on me. When Laura asked her, "Do you feel you contribute equally to the relationship?" Qley laughed and said, "He makes the money. I bring the peace." I looked at her, stunned. Peace? Is that what she calls ignoring me all evening while live tweeting some Netflix show? We stopped going to therapy after that. Qley said it was a waste of time, and she wasn't in the mood to have strangers pick apart her life. I didn't push. I was tired, emotionally drained. I started taking longer shifts at work just so I could avoid coming home early. I'd sit in my car sometimes, parked on our street, just breathing, just trying to gather the energy to go inside. There's something deeply lonely about coming home to someone who doesn't see you anymore. Not doesn't love you, just doesn't see you. You talk, and it's like your words pass through glass. She'd barely look up from her phone. When I tried to talk about how I felt, she'd say, "You're always so sensitive now. Are you depressed or something?" As if that question was supposed to be helpful. I started doing everything myself. Groceries, laundry, cooking, bill payments. I was basically living like a bachelor who happened to share a bed with a woman who viewed him as an inconvenience. I didn't go out much, didn't have the energy. I turned down invites from Brandon, my coworker, for drinks after work more times than I could count. Every time I thought about staying out late, I'd picture Qley texting me, "When are you coming home?" even though she had no intention of talking to me when I got there. One Friday night, a few weeks before things broke, I got home to find her blasting music on the Bluetooth speaker, laughing on a video call with her best friend, Alicia. I waved hello, got a half smile. The kitchen was a mess again. Takeout containers, a spilled smoothie, a trail of sticky footprints across the tile. I took off my steel-toed boots, walked into the bedroom, and just sat on the edge of the bed for 15 minutes, staring at the floor. I felt like a ghost in my own house. That night, I made myself some eggs. At 9 p.m., she didn't notice. It was around then that I stopped expecting anything. I no longer got disappointed. I just observed, took mental notes, watched how she acted, how she moved through the day like I was just another appliance in the house, reliable, silent, expected to function. The resentment didn't explode, it calcified. I wasn't angry. I was numb, and I knew that if something didn't shift soon, I was going to either burn out completely or start resenting her in ways I wouldn't be able to walk back from. That shift came sooner than I thought, on a Thursday. A cold, gray, windy evening in February. I remember it like it was yesterday. I'd spent the entire day troubleshooting a machine failure at the plant. My hands were cracked from the dry air, my head ached, and all I wanted was a hot meal and some quiet. When I walked in the door at 6:45 p.m., she didn't even look up from her phone. I took off my boots, hung up my jacket, and asked, gently, almost apologetically, "Did you make anything for dinner?" She turned her head, smirked slightly, and said, "Go make dinner. I've been home all day, not in the mood to cook. You go." That was it. The moment everything inside me snapped into silence. But instead of yelling or reacting, I just decided. That Thursday night was the quietest snap I've ever felt inside myself. No shouting, no slamming doors, no drama, just silence. When Qley said, "Go make dinner," something in me shifted. Not like a wave of anger or sadness. No, this wasn't emotional. It was decisive, like hearing the last click of a lock before a door closes behind you forever. I stood in the hallway, still wearing my work pants and thermals underneath. My boots were wet from the slush outside and left a faint trail on the mat, but I didn't even care anymore. She didn't glance at me again. Her eyes were on her phone, thumbs scrolling endlessly. The faint sound of a TikTok voiceover played from her speaker. Some woman ranting about red flags in relationships. Ironic. I didn't speak, didn't argue, didn't explain. I walked into the bedroom, took off my work clothes, and tossed them in the hamper. I stood under the hot shower until my muscles stopped aching and my head cleared a little. When I stepped out and toweled off, I looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. My beard had gotten longer than I'd liked. My eyes were tired. The skin around them sagged, slightly from lack of sleep and stress. But underneath that weariness was clarity. I hadn't felt that in a long, long time. I put on a clean pair of jeans, a dark navy button-up, and threw on a light cologne I hadn't used in months. Not for anyone, just because I felt like smelling like something other than sweat and factory air for once. When I stepped into the hallway, Qley finally looked up. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Where are you going?" I grabbed my wallet from the kitchen counter and slipped it into my back pocket. "Out to dinner," I said calmly. Not passive-aggressively, not bitterly, just truth. She blinked at me. "Are you serious?" I looked at her, not at her clothes or her expression, at her. And I saw something flicker in her face, a mix of confusion, annoyance, and something close to fear. "Yeah," I said. "I'm serious." She put down her phone. "You're actually going to leave just because I didn't cook?" "No," I said, opening the front door. "I'm leaving because I need to eat. And I'm not in the mood to be insulted for expecting something basic in a marriage." Then I stepped outside. I closed the door quietly behind me. The cold Ontario air slapped my face immediately. It was -5 degrees Celsius, and the sidewalks were still icy from the snowstorm earlier in the week. I could see my breath as I walked to my car, a gray 2015 Honda Civic with salt stains on the sides and a slightly rattling engine. Nothing fancy, but it got me where I needed to go. I sat in the driver's seat, exhaled deeply, and just stared at the dashboard for a minute. Then I started the engine and pulled away from the curb. I drove west toward Streetsville, the older, more charming part of Mississauga. Cobblestone sidewalks, family-owned businesses, street lamps that still gave off a warm yellow glow instead of that sterile white LED. I parked across the street from a place I hadn't been to in years, Cucina Milano, a small Italian restaurant owned by a Portuguese-Canadian couple. It used to be our anniversary spot back when we celebrated things. The inside was warm, the smell of garlic and oregano hitting me the moment I walked in. The hostess looked up, smiled gently. "Table for one?" "Yeah," I nodded. "Somewhere quiet, if possible." She sat me in the back corner near the window. The place wasn't crowded, just a few couples and an older man eating alone, watching the Leafs game on the bar TV. I ordered a glass of red wine, a bowl of minestrone soup, and penne arrabbiata with grilled chicken. No rush, no noise, no TikTok audio playing in the background. Just soft jazz and the occasional clinking of forks and glasses. It felt surreal, to be respected by the atmosphere, to not feel tense, to not feel like a disappointment, just present. Halfway through the soup, my phone buzzed. "Qley." Text message. "Where did you actually go?" Buzz. I didn't mean it like that. Buzz. "You're acting childish. You could have just made something and sat with me." I silenced the phone, left it face down. The waiter came with my main dish. I ate slowly, tasting every bite like it was my first real meal in months. I wasn't angry. I wasn't trying to teach her a lesson. I was just done participating in the game. Another buzz. "Can you answer at least?" Like, seriously? A minute later, a call. I watched the screen flash Qley, mobile, and then fade. I didn't decline it. I just didn't move. That moment of ignoring the ring, that single second, was more powerful than any argument we'd ever had. When I finally got the bill, I tipped generously 20%, thanked the waiter by name, wished the hostess a good night. I walked outside in the cold, zipped up my jacket, and took a long breath in. It was the first time in a long while I wasn't in a rush to go home. I sat in my car for a while, engine running, heat on low. Checked my phone. 6 unread messages. Message 1. "Fine. Don't come back tonight." Message 2. "This is so over the top. Like you're literally out there pretending to be some victim." Message 3. "You know what? You always do this. Run away when things get real." Message 4. "I made a frozen pizza just now. You could have had some, but I guess you'd rather run to some stupid restaurant." Message 5. "Whatever. I'm going to bed." Message 6. "Don't wake me up when you get home." I stared at the screen. No reply. Then I opened Spotify, put on a playlist called Evening Calm, and started the drive home through the quiet Mississauga streets. When I pulled into the driveway around 10:20 p.m., the house was dark except for the light in the hallway. I walked in and took off my boots silently. The living room was empty. I could hear Qley in the bedroom, the soft sound of phone playing a show. Maybe she thought I'd come in begging. Maybe she expected a fight. But I didn't go in. I poured myself a glass of water, sat at the dining table, and just sat there, looking around, at the dirty dishes, at the unopened mail, at the wall clock with the dead battery, at the house I was paying for that didn't feel like home anymore. Eventually, I got up, brushed my teeth, and went to the guest bedroom. I didn't say a word to her that night. I didn't need to. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I made a choice for myself. Not for peace, not for survival, not for keeping things steady, but because I was finally done waiting for her to change. The next morning, I woke up before the sun, as usual. But this time, I hadn't slept in our bedroom. I had stayed in the guest room, the room we always said would be for visitors, but which had become a dumping ground for unfolded laundry and unopened Amazon boxes. I cleared a spot on the bed the night before, lay down with a simple pillow and blanket, and drifted off with no expectation of intimacy or conversation. For once, that didn't feel like a loss. It felt like freedom. At 5:45 a.m., my internal alarm clock rang true, just like every day. I stood up slowly, stretched, and took a breath. There was a different energy in my body. I wasn't tired, not in the way I had been before. I wasn't dragging myself through the morning, trying to please someone who didn't seem to care. I was just moving forward. The kitchen was dark when I stepped in, and the sink was still full of dirty dishes from the day before. I made a pot of coffee. For me. Only me. Toasted a couple of slices of multigrain bread, spread peanut butter on them, and sat at the kitchen table while the world outside slowly brightened through the frosted window. It was cold. February in Ontario always is, but I felt oddly warm inside. At 6:40, just before I left for work, Qley finally came out of the bedroom. She looked like she hadn't slept well. Her hair was a bit messy, and she wore the same hoodie from the night before. She stood in the hallway, rubbing her eyes. "You didn't come to bed," she said, voice low, trying to sound casual. I didn't look up from my coffee right away. I finished my sip and then glanced at her. "No," I said. "I didn't." She blinked. "What?" I shrugged. Felt like space was needed. She seemed thrown off by how calm I was. No edge in my voice. No frustration. Just clear. She walked into the kitchen and opened the fridge, then turned back to me. "You seriously left last night because I didn't cook?" She asked, this time a bit more defensive. I met her eyes. "No, Qley. I left because I'm tired of being treated like a background character in my own life." Silence. She didn't say anything right away. Just leaned on the counter, chewing her lip. She expected me to apologize, to soften, to crack under the tension. But I didn't. I stood, grabbed my lunch from the fridge, and zipped in my jacket. "Have a good day," I said as I walked toward the door. "Wait," she called. "You're not even going to talk to me about this?" I paused with my hand on the doorknob. "I've been talking, Qley. You just never listened." And with that, I left. That day at work, I felt like a different man. My coworkers noticed it too. Brandon even said, "You look like you got laid or something." I just laughed and said I finally slept well. It wasn't about Qley anymore. It was about me. I started thinking clearly. I took my full lunch break for once. I ate outside in the sun, even though it was cold, just to get fresh air. I scheduled a long overdue appointment with my therapist and called the gym near Square One to set up a tour for Saturday. When I got home that evening, Qley had cooked. Chicken stir-fry, clean dishes, lit candles, even a fresh tablecloth I didn't know he owned. "Dinner's ready," she said, her tone lighter, forced cheer in her voice. "I thought we could eat together." I nodded politely. "Thanks." I sat down, said nothing more, and ate in silence. Halfway through the meal, she spoke. I realized I haven't been doing my part. I looked at her. She wasn't smirking. She wasn't sarcastic. But I didn't respond. I just nodded and kept eating. "I was just stressed lately," she added. "I didn't mean to snap at you." I finished my plate, stood up, and said, "I appreciate the dinner." Then I walked away. No lecture. No guilt. No begging her to see me. That was the first moment I saw fear in her eyes. Not because I was angry, but because she felt my distance. Emotional detachment is more terrifying than confrontation. Over the next week, things changed, but not in the way she expected. She started waking up earlier, started doing laundry without being asked. She began texting me during the day. "How's work going?" Or, "Need anything from the store?" And I replied with short, polite answers. Not rude, not cold, just unavailable. I stopped looking for her approval. I stopped waiting for her affection. And without meaning to, I took all my energy back. All the energy I had spent trying to keep this marriage alive on my own. That Saturday, I went to the gym and signed up. I met a few guys there who invited me to join their squash group on Wednesdays. I accepted. I started sleeping in the guest room regularly. I said it was temporary, but we both knew it wasn't. One night, she asked if I wanted to go watch a movie together like we used to. I said, "No, I have other plans." She didn't ask what they were. She just nodded, then looked down. A couple weeks later, she asked me outright, "Do you still love me?" I looked at her. Really looked. "I'm not sure," I said honestly. Tears welled up in her eyes. "I'm trying, Daniel. I'm really trying." I nodded. "I see that. But I don't know if it's too late." She cried that night. I heard her from the hallway. But I didn't go in. This isn't some big dramatic ending. I didn't pack a bag and storm out. I didn't scream or cheat or file for divorce the next day. What I did was much quieter, much stronger. I reclaimed myself. I stopped expecting her to give me what she wasn't willing to. I stopped asking for love that came with conditions or for respect that only showed up when she was scared to lose me. I didn't leave the house, not physically, but emotionally. I walked away and never looked back. And here's the truth. Qley's still trying. She's more present, more caring, more domestic than she's been in years. But I don't respond the same. Because once a man sees the truth of how he's been treated, he can't unsee it. And once he stops being emotionally dependent, he becomes untouchable. I don't punish her. I don't mistreat her. But I don't chase her either. Not anymore. She used to roll her eyes when I came home from work. Now she watches the clock. She used to tell me, "Go make dinner." Now she sets the table before I even walk in. She used to ignore me. Now she's terrified of being ignored. But the difference is, I'm not doing any of it out of revenge. I'm doing it because I finally understand. Love without respect isn't love. And if I have to remind someone to care about me, then I'm already alone. That one night, when I walked out in silence and ate dinner by myself, was the night I stopped being the man who begged for scraps. I became the man who dines in peace.